Happy Monday. It is book club day when you are watching this. We are doing the final wrap-up review of Everybody in My Family Has Killed Someone. I don't think I'll be flagged for that because certain words on YouTube can get weird, but I'm pretty sure I've said it in other videos because you guys know our book club goes for 5 weeks. So this is the fifth video. Actually, this one might not be because we got really behind in November, so we kind of condensed December a little bit. Anyway, normally it's 5 weeks. So we've been talking about this book for a little while already. And we are going to answer the final questions and tell our final review, what we thought of the book. And I say we because I do this with my friend Charmaine Staycation. She'll either be in the title or in the description box. Definitely go check out our video. I'm really curious to see what she thought of this book. She always gets so excited, just like her facial expressions and stuff. I love watching her reviews. So we're going to get right into it. Of course, this is going to contain spoilers. So this is your warning. Spoiler, 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 spoiler. We're talking about the book. So we are going to mention who done it because it is a mystery. We're going to get into all that. We're going to get into the jaw-dropping moment. Okay? So if you have not read the book and you do not want it spoiled for yourself, back out. Or if you want to still support the channel, mute it. Whatever. I appreciate you. All right, you ready? I obviously read the questions for you guys last week, but I do not remember them. I did do research just on the cast of characters. So the questions go right up the top of my head the day of. I never really plan out my answers. I feel like it's just more genuine that way. Number 1, the story is told in a narrative form where the author breaks the fourth wall or talks directly to the readers. Did you like the way the story was set up? Did you find it easy or hard to follow? I kept saying it was interesting. So I did note in my Fable app, which is something we have here with our book club. You can link it down below. It is a free app, 100%. You just have to download it. And then, if you click that link, it'll have you download it. And then it should bring you right to our book club, Paige Turner's book club. And you can join. And basically, it's where you can chat about the book. And it's by chapter. So that way, if you haven't finished reading the book, but you just got to the jaw-dropping scene, or you just got to the whodunit, and you want to talk about it, you can go right into that chapter before so you're not spoiled. So you will not go into the chat in that chapter unless you've read it. You know what I mean? So I remember writing notes, and I remember putting, it's so interesting that he breaks the fourth wall. He talks to us directly in the book. He is a stand-up comedian, so the book does have kind of like a little comedy to it, which I really enjoy. Charmaine actually listens to it, and she said you really get the comedic, energy. I don't know how the word I'm looking for, but the way it's narrated. So I'm really curious. I may listen to the second book. It is available on my library app because there is a second book called Everyone on This Train is a Suspect. And then there's a third one that just came out. It's actually a Christmas book. It's, Everybody This Christmas Has a Secret or something like that. So, I am interested to maybe possibly listen to those through audio, but interesting is the best word. I did like it. I didn't dislike it in any way, but I'm fine with reading a book that doesn't break the third wall. It was different. I think that's why I found it interesting and unique because most books do not do that. He'd literally talk to us and be like, well, that's Lucy's last cigarette. I knew this was going to happen. I've been sick, and I feel a lot better. For some reason, whenever I talk a lot, I start to cough. And I really don't want to edit this video a ton because I don't have time to watch all this and edit all the clips. So you guys might see some coughs. But anyway, so when he said that, I was like, oh, does that mean she's going to die? Is she going to be the next one that's So it does really add a unique, interesting flair to the book. So I honestly really enjoyed it. I didn't find it hard to follow at all. I know there is a part in the book where he literally tells you what page numbers people are going to be killed or murdered. And he was like, oh, the deaths happen on page blah, 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 blah. I didn't necessarily remember those pages. I'm sure there's people that probably wrote them down. But there's one point where he goes, hey, don't forget we're on page blah, blah, blah. It's 4 pages away to the next murder. So I didn't find it hard to follow at all because it literally gives you exactly when someone is going to die. Number 2, did you enjoy the preemptive reveals? Oh, that's what I was just talking about. of the events in the book, i.e. the page numbers? Does knowing what's coming but not how or why increase or decrease suspense? I kind of think it increased the suspense because there was quite a few page numbers, like 4 or 5. So you're like, wow, there's a lot of death in this book. And like I said, I didn't remember the page numbers, so it didn't ruin it for me. The one thing I will say that was not like ruined for me, but I was just like, about, it wasn't even a murder. It was, he talks about how him and Juliet, the resort owner, are gonna touch lips on page whatever. So I was like, oh man, I already know they end up together. But then you get to that part and it turns out he just needed CPR. And I was like, oh, see what he did there? Like, he built up that, you were expecting one thing, but it was actually another. And that's honestly how this whole book was. So it's, everybody has killed somebody. It makes you think they're all murderers, but they're not. That's why he specifically used the word killed. It wasn't my uncle has murdered someone, my blah, blah, blah has murdered someone. No, it was killed. They have all, even, and then there was, I actually like read like an interview with him, and he said how it was like, basically he used that word very specifically because he said one day he was walking down the street and he started thinking about how the person down the street, walking down the street on the side of him, could have killed somebody, whether it was inadvertently, whether it was purposefully. Like, in a way, we can all kill somebody. You know, you can harm somebody with your words. I'll never forget, there was a famous case here. They even turned it into a friggin' Netflix series. Not here, like in my specific town, but not far. I think like 3 or 4 towns away. And it was a girl who basically told her boyfriend to kill himself. And he did. And there was actually a whole trial. Like, was she found guilty? Because she literally told him to do it. Did she give him the smoking gun? No. But her words caused that. Was that the same as handing him a gun? If you know someone has a mental health issue, you know they love you, and you're literally telling them to go off themselves, I think she's a very shitty person. That's my opinion on that. But yeah, so that's what I mean. So and that is like what the book is about. So they don't all murder someone, but they all end up killing someone, if that makes sense. So I think it did a really good job in increasing the suspense. The only part, like I said, that I was kind of blah about was the touching lips, but it ended up being CPR. So, and then you read the end and they are together. So it was like, wow, he really was able to like surprise me and like shock me, even though he was telling me what was going to happen. Like, it was weird. He's a really good author. I could see why his books have sold internationally almost 1 million copies. Insane. Number 3, as well as being an author, Stevenson is a stand-up comic. Did you find the book funny? Does humorous tone work in crime fiction? I did find it funny, and I think it does. He, like I said, it maybe not for everybody, but the way he writes, he's an incredible author, and you could tell he's a funny guy. I mean, he's a stand-up comic. People watch his shows. He sells tickets. And he does say Ernest is loosely based on himself. And Ernest was funny. And not maybe so much like in a ha-ha kind of way, but he was funny in a different, like, I didn't like crack up in the book. I wasn't, because it's not a comedy, but it definitely had like comic relief. There was definitely some funny parts for sure. So I think it did work. Could everybody do it? Probably not. But could this author do it? Yes, and I'm sure his background of stand-up comedy helps with that. Number 4, the book is set in Australia. Did that have any effect on how you viewed the book or your reading experience? No. To be honest with you, I never really think about where a book is set unless they specify. Like, sometimes they'll say like, oh, a New England town. And, you know, you hear about the snow and the lighthouse or the beach, and because I'm from New England, sometimes I'll connect in that way. But other than that, I never really think about the setting of a book. To me, it was a ski resort. It could have been in Colorado. It could have been, it could have been anywhere. There was a few spots where it specifically mentions Australia, but other than that, I never really came into my mind. To be honest with you, I didn't even know Australia got cold like that. I thought Australia was you hear Australia, you think beaches, you think surfers. So I didn't even think of Australia as I was reading the book, to be honest with you. So it didn't really affect my reading experience. Number 5, Ernest says that a busy schedule or routine is used to fill the gaps of grief and lessen the burden of decision making. Do you think this is true? Does it work? So yeah, that specifically was because his brother passed away. Or you think he passed away. So his brother was locked in a hot car with him. His other brothers, well, there was 3 brothers. And he even has moments where he feels like he's like out of breath. And now he realizes that's trauma from when he was little. So the mother lost her son. You find out later on it's actually very different. But she, instead of like letting that sink in and taking that grief, she turned it into, let's sign them up for sports and activities. And she gave them a full schedule so they never had time to grieve. You never had time to be sad. I think sometimes it is good to be kept busy, but I think it is also good to grieve. Like, I don't like my breaks sometimes because I feel like I don't have enough things to do. So I get like, mentally, I'm like, oh my God, this isn't good for me. I need to go do something. I need to go be productive. But sometimes you need to have those feelings, I needed to have those feelings about my grandmother when she passed away. I needed to cry it out. And I still have moments where I'm sad that's never going to leave me. But it's not good to completely block out that sadness. That's not healthy. It's going to come out at some point. Because you're just going to like bottle it up. So, does it work? Yes, to an extent. I think you need a little bit of both. You need to be able to grieve, but also keep yourself busy, because just laying in your bed day in, day out and crying is obviously not going to help the situation. Number 6, what do you think of Ronald Knox's 10 Commandments of detective fiction? Do you feel they are relevant today or old-fashioned? So, and then, Charmaine wrote these. She put note, 1 redacted due to super racism. I don't even remember that. But yeah, I'm sure, the original rules were when they were written in like the 30s. Like Agatha Christie time, like Sherlock Holmes time, like 1920s, 1930s, Murder on the Orient Express. They are very like old school rules. So I do think they're a little old fashioned. They're a little outdated. There's even a part in the book where he's like, they never had technology that we have now where you can't just Google something. So I think they are a little like outdated and old fashioned for sure. I do think some of them are truly relevant though. They still kind of stick to those same rules. Like he said, like the murderer is never going to be someone you introduce halfway into the book. So like when he introduced us to the resort owner, not the one for that resort, but the neighboring resort, he was like, well, it can't be him because you only you feel your thumb on the right side of the book. There's not that many pages left. And it's true. It's always going to be someone that shows up basically throughout the entire novel. Because if not, then, because that's not part of like who done it. They do follow rules, You get a list of characters and you're like, who did it? And you're not going to all of a sudden add a character who could have been the murder halfway into the book. That's just not something you do. So I do feel like they are relevant, but I also feel like some of them are old fashioned. I do feel like they can be changed up a little bit, just like the Bible. So many people, and I love God and I pray every day and I believe. I just went to Christmas light ceremony, but it wasn't just about Christmas lights. It was about God. There was a room to light candles for past loved ones, and there was a nativity scene there and all those things, and I truly believe in those things. But I do believe the Bible is very, very old and very, very outdated, and people love to throw it in other people's faces. And it's like, times have changed. And even my grandmother was very religious, but she even realized it. She said, things are different now. It's not the same that it used to be. So that's why I get really annoyed when people like throw Bibles in people's faces. And there's so many things in the Bible that people do not follow. So if you're going to pick out one thing, that is like a hypocrite. You either follow the whole thing or you follow none of it, So not to like bring that into it, but it's the same thing with this. If something's written over 100 years ago, are parts of it going to be relevant? Yes, 100%. At the end of the day, we're all still humans. We're still living sort of the same basic life. We all want to survive. We all want to thrive. Not everyone wants to make babies and have a family, but that's like the general consensus of life. You want to be important. You want to leave a legacy, whether that's kids or your job or whatever it is, you want to matter. That's innate, is that the word I'm looking for, in all humans. But things have changed in 100 years. So there are parts of it relevant, yes. Are parts of it old-fashioned, yes, 100%. Number 7, are Knox's rules often broken in modern crime. Do you view this as a positive or negative thing? How well does Stevenson stick to the rules? I think he sticks to the rules pretty well. I know he said, like, oh, there's no lying. And then the part with the brother, so again, obviously, spoiler alert, he says how he died on the side. No, his brother died on the side of him. So when you find out about the brother being locked in the hot car, you think that's how the brother died. You find out the brother did not die that way. Someone cracked open the window and kidnapped him. But he did die on the side of him at the end of the book. So he didn't technically lie. You know what I mean? Like, and even says he was going to be as reliable as a narrator as he could be. And I do think he truly was, because he broke that third wall and he talked to you in between. And he was like, oh, I didn't know the name of this, but my editor told me, so I'm going to include it in the rest of the book. But I didn't actually know the name of this at the time, which is, he's talking about that thing that a lot of jewelers have. It kind of looks like a microscope so they can look into the diamonds. So I think he did a really good job with sticking with the rules. You have to kind of bend the rules a little bit sometimes. Yes, because you don't know. Because it is old-fashioned. Like the whole, like he said, oh, back then Sherlock Holmes wouldn't have been able to Google what I just Googled. But sometimes you got to use what you got and the technology in front of you, The brother ended up being, so spoiler alert, spoiler, obviously the brother is alive. Well, he could be dead, they don't know, but he was kidnapped. And then the mother assumed that he was killed by his kidnappers. You find out that it's the cop at the result is their brother. That's the part where you're like, oh. So then that is like, yeah, he was a character throughout the entire novel, but he turns out to be a totally different person. So you're like, does that break the rules? But I have read many murder mysteries. I can think of one in particular, Freya McFadden. I won't say what book, but the whole time, one of the characters is somebody else. And I feel like that is a very, crime fiction thing to do. So do you feel like they're holding one up over you? Because you're not really getting the full story? I guess, but that's what makes it fun. That's what makes you shocked. That's what makes you not figure out who the killer is. Because if you figure out who the killer is in the beginning of the book, it's not fun anymore. So I think he did a pretty good job with sticking with the rules. And I do kind of see it as a positive thing. Well, it says, do you think it's positive or negative breaking the rules? Probably, I think it depends what rule they break. You know what I mean? If all of a sudden the murderer is the last 60 pages of the book, and he wasn't in the whole story, that would piss me off. I'm like, oh, well, no shit, I couldn't guess who done it. He wasn't in the first half of the book. So I think it really depends on what rule they're breaking, Alright, as always, guys, I ran out of storage, and then I literally had to go through, delete a bunch of stuff. I really gotta edit and upload my vlogs. I owe you guys a shit ton of vlogs. I have so much footage on my phone. Number 8. Should Ernest have testified against Michael during the trial? Me, personally, yes. I understand at the end of the day it was his brother, and I feel like, you do have some devotion to family, especially if, you're close, you grew up with them, which they did seem close. But when he describes how his brother did it, it really seemed so cold and calculated. It's one thing, it's wrong to do that no matter what, but it's one thing, there's things like self-defense or in the moment, but when it's so cold, I don't know, I feel weird saying this because it's it shouldn't be a thing no matter what. You should never take someone's life. But the way it was so cold and calculated really made me, I would probably have done the same thing. But this was a 2-part question. I was already jumping in. So do you think he should have testified? What do you think happened to Lucy? What do you think about what happened to Michael? Were you surprised about the identity of Green Boots? All right. So Lucy, she had said that she would rather have died on her own accord than be dead by ashes, because they said how it was such a slow torture, because you would just you would just not be able to breathe, and you would just eventually it was a miserable, painful death. So the book makes it seem like she jumped off the roof to get away, because it was either she was gonna die by this guy or die of her own accord. That's how it made it seem anyway to me. You guys let me know. I'm curious if anyone saw that differently from me, but that's how I made it seem. Because at first they were saying she jumped off the roof because she felt a lot of guilt, and it was more of like a suicide attempt. Maybe I shouldn't have said that word. I feel like I'm going to be flagged by YouTube now. But then you find out that Green Boots, she figured out Green Boots' identity, and then you're like, wait a minute, she said that she would not die. She would not die that way. If she was to die, she would rather like end it in her own power, her own way. So that's, in my opinion, that's how it seemed like. It seemed like that's why she jumped off the roof, because it was either die by this man or die in her own way. So she chose to die in her own way. That's what I think happened to Lucy. Again, let me know what you think. And then what'd you think about what happened to Michael? Oh my God, so sad. In prison for 3 years. Granted, what he did wasn't right, but you find out there's a lot more to the story. You find out it's not just some random guy he killed. You find out it was the man who killed his father. You find out it's a really bad guy. That's what I mean. When you hear all those things and you're like, would I have testified? You know, it's one thing if it was found out and then they're like, hey, you have to go to court. You know, you have no choice at that point. You know, but like, would I physically like call, give a tip? You know what I mean? Like, be the one to physically turn him in is a different story. But, and then, so Michael's released from prison, and while he was in prison those 3 years, he really thought about what he did, and he's not mad at his brother at all. And he said he realized that no life is worth taking, and that, you know, everyone, like, how do you decide what a life is worth, you know? So it's sad because he really was turning around his life, and then he was killed, and in a gruesome way, by his own brother. He didn't know it was his brother unless he told him his identity. He might have, actually. I think he did, actually. Because he said how his brother looked at him. He was excited because he thought the killer was like, oh, they are just like me. They're killers like me. Like, not, you know, it's not that something's wrong with me. It's in our blood. But then when he confessed to him and told him all the things he did, Michael was like, no, that's not okay. Because that's how, like, Ernest explained it. Like, Ernest was like, yeah, he really was talking to me. And he was like, how do you contemplate what's worth a life? And he probably said all those things to Jeremy. And that's why Jeremy was like, well, now, since you don't agree with me, he had, like, this built-up anger. And it's almost like he blacks out. And he killed him. Now, it isn't totally like a blackout, and that's what he said. It's almost like he just gets so angry he loses control, but it can't be that much out of control because his deaths are very gruesome and they are planned. Like, those foster parents that took him in, he had to plan that. Like, you know, these aren't normal deaths. You know, like locking them in their car, slowly releasing ash through, I forgot how he did it. Was it the what do you call that? Like when you have a window on the top of your car, you know, and then Michael's, it was like the same thing. It was like slowly through a window, he put ash in. And they said his death would have took hours, which is so sad. And he had said the door was unlocked, but it probably wasn't because Michael probably would have ran right out. So, you know, he was locked. He was trapped. It was only locked on the outside. Here he is. He just got out of prison for 3 years. Wanted to make it up to everybody, and he got accused immediately, was put in this room that smelled, that was filled with mold, the drying room where people dry their, like, wet clothes from the snow. I feel bad for Michael, even though he took a life, you know, he served his time, and I don't think he should have gone that way. I really feel bad for Michael. And then were you surprised by the identity of Green Boots? So you find out that the unidentified body is the sheriff of the town. So who is pretending to be the sheriff is Jeremy, which is their long-lost brother. So yeah, you are surprised. And like the sign where he shows Lucy the body, that's why he was keeping the picture hidden. He didn't want anyone at the resort to see it. He didn't want anyone in the town to see it. He just wanted to show the Cunninghams because they wouldn't know who the sheriff is. But Lucy had been stopped and gotten a ticket on the way up there. So Lucy did know who the sheriff was. So when he showed her, he even went, oh, your boss. But she was saying as she was walking away, so Ernest even mistook her and thought you said okay. She said okay, boss. So, and that's when he realized she probably clicked afterwards, like, oh my God, he's not really a cop. He's pretending to be the cop. He's the killer. She might have not known he was Jeremy, but she knew, like, you know, something iffy was going on, and hence why she ended up jumping off the roof because he confronted her. So yeah, I was shocked on who the identity of Green Boots, not so much the identity of Green Boots, but the identity of the sheriff. You find out through the identity of Green Boots, you find out that Green Boots is actually the sheriff, and the guy that was pretending to be the cop is actually Jeremy. And then 10, the last question before we cast the characters. In the end, did Ernest kill someone? How do you feel about the way the book ended? So it definitely seems like he kills Jeremy. He's laying in the snow. He's not breathing. Well, he has ragged breath. He was caught in this fire. So he took in all these, he could have died on his own. They leave it very vague. Because it could have been the whole, he swallowed the ash and, all that. But they made it seem, because he was like, oh, I was about to get up and leave. But he sat up, or he coughed up, or something like that. Like, then he realized he was still alive. And it seems like he did it in his own hands. And then he even said, like, I didn't lie when I said I died sitting on the side of my brother. Now, of course, you thought, oh, yeah, in the car seat when you were locked in the car when you were, like, I don't know, 4 years old or whatever. But no, it was when he was in the snow after they burnt down the building. Could he have died on his own? 100%. Does it seem like Michael did, not Michael, does it seem like Ernest did it? Yes. I mean, it is part of the book. Everybody in my family has killed somebody. He says, I've killed somebody. So I do think, like, at his own hands, he kills Jeremy. But again, very weird circumstances, because obviously he was a murderer. He hurt a lot of people. He was about to kill all of them and set the building on fire. So it was definitely like not so much self-defense, because obviously he's just laying in the snow. But I think it was a death that was very, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like, and I can't think of the word right now. Like, what am I trying to say? Like, well-deserved. That sounds weird to say that, but you know what I mean. And then how you feel about the way the book ended. I enjoyed how the book ended. I'm glad that it didn't just end that way. I'm glad you did go into, I think it's almost a year into the future or something like that. You find out he's writing a book. You find out Juliet's also writing a book about the Hotel from Hell. And you find out they're actually together, which I'm glad. Part of me almost wanted him to get back with Erin, but Erin didn't deserve him at that point. Erin left him for his brother. So I'm kind of glad he ended up with Juliet. It definitely seemed like they had those vibes. So I enjoyed the way the book ended. Now we're going to get into cast the characters. So for Ernest Cunningham, because the book is loosely based off of the author, I literally kept thinking about the author of the book. And there is literally a picture of him on the side of the book. I will show you guys right now. His name is Benjamin Stevenson. And this is him right here. So I kept imagining him playing Ernest. And he actually does have a twin brother, which is funny because that's one of the rules. Like, you can't have a magical twin. He does have a brother that just shows up. Is that breaking the rule? I don't know. But, yes, I thought of Benjamin Stevenson for Ernest. Then for Ernie, who is his wife/ex-wife, I thought of Natalie Portman. The reason I thought of Natalie Portman, if you guys ever see the movie Brothers, her husband is presumed dead in the war, and she ends up having a close relationship with his brother. So, very easy on why I thought of Natalie Portman, because I do feel like, it's sort of the same storyline, different way, because obviously, he wasn't presumed dead, but that's literally... And Natalie Portman's an incredible actress, so. I heard this might be on HBO Max. Not yet, like, they talking about making it on HBO Max. So I'm really curious to see who they end up casting. So that movie, Brothers, has two male characters. Obviously, it's two brothers. And one of them is played by Jake Gyllenhaal, and the other one is played by Tobey Maguire. So I kept imagining these two brothers. And for Jeremy, which is the cop that you find out is Jeremy, I kept thinking of Jake Gyllenhaal for that role. I feel like he would have played a good cop, a good guy, and then all of a sudden twist and he's a bad guy. I could see him doing that. And he's an incredible actor. He's been in a lot of different types of roles. So I could see him like doing that role extremely well. Then for Lucy... So I was struggling with some of these, and if you look up like cast the characters, there's a website, I forgot the name of it, and it'll show like people vote, and it'll show like who they think should have casted as these characters. And that's how I got some of them. So this is an example of one of them. And Lucy, for this website, everyone chose Anna Kendrick. And I could definitely see Anna Kendrick playing this character because before Anna Kendrick was really big, before she was in like Pitch Perfect and all those movies and A Simple Favor and all those, she was just this little annoying side character in Twilight. And I loved Twilight. Of course, her character doesn't do much in the movie, but her character in the, like the one she plays in the book, she's like this annoying friend that Bella has who's human, and you just want her to shut the F up half the time. So I could see her being Lucy, because that is Lucy. They get annoyed with Lucy. She's always talking about her small business, which is just an MLM. He even says it rhymes with pyramid scheme. And I loved those parts of the book because it really showed how social media can be so fake. Like, here she is, she's posting she was on a company retreat, and it was actually just a family reunion. Here she is saying she got this car for free through her MLM, and it was actually putting her in debt because it was a lease that the company canceled. So for her to keep the car, she had to keep paying for it. And that was why Michael skimmed some money, and Alan noticed, and there ended up being like a fight. So I could see her playing that annoying Lucy character very well. So I thought of Anna Kendrick for Lucy. Michael. So Michael, I kept thinking, and it was funny because I picked him. He was one of my guys for the last book that we read too. And it's Penn Badley. Because Penn Badley, he's good at playing the good guy. Like, I loved him in Gossip Girl. I loved him in Easy A. But you guys know, in You, he is a killer. So I think he would do Michael very well. Because Michael was, a killer. He went to prison. Does he end up being a good guy in the end? I think so, in my opinion. So I could see Penn Badley playing a really good Michael. Then for Robert, which is the dad, I was surprised he was on this list. For a second, I said, why is he on this list? He wasn't even a character. Because he's gone, right? He passed away when they were little. But they do reference him a lot. Because he is the reason that all this happened. Because Robert killed him. Not Robert, I'm sorry. Alan killed him. And now here it is, like 20, 30 years later, Alan is contacting Michael. So because Tobey Maguire from Brothers was in my head, I figured he could play the father really well. And I think that would be a good role for him because at the end of the day, I always think of Tobey Maguire as like Spider-Man, and he is the good guy. But he does cause a lot of havoc. So that's kind of like Robert, because he is undercover. So he is working with the police, but he's causing a lot of havoc while he's working for the police, and it ends up ultimately ending his life. So I think Tobey Maguire would have played a good Robert. Then for Audrey, which is Ernest's mom, I thought of Catherine O'Hara. I'm going to show you a picture, guys. She's been in my mind a lot lately. I think I picked her for one of the other ones, too, because I watched Beetlejuice recently, and she was in the new Beetlejuice. And then right now, it's Christmas time. Home Alone's a huge movie during Christmas time. And, she forgot her son in New York City. She forgot her son at home. And she forgot her son in the car. Like, Audrey, anyway. So, I think she could play a good... This is Catherine O'Hara. I could see her playing a very good Audrey. Then... Oh, wow, they have her character from, like, how she used to look when she was, like, younger. Like, in the Home Alone days. Marcelio, I actually got this, again, from that website where they, like, cast the characters. And I saw it and I went, ooh, they casted this one well. And it is Javier Bardem, if I'm saying his name correctly. I have seen him in a lot of movies. And he is, I don't know if he's Spanish or if he's Latin, but he's definitely not like American from what it says in the book, because they even say how Sophia, he has an accent, Sophia has an accent, or they can speak Spanish. I'm not 100% sure. So I think Javier could play a really good lawyer, and could play Marcelo really, really well. And then for Sophia, because like I said, she is like Spanish descent, I thought of Jessica Alba. Now, Jessica Alba's not actually Spanish. She's Mexican. So she is Latin descent. And I could see... And Sophia has, like, a really good role. Even though she's not, like, a huge main character. She's a doctor. She's the one that knows all about the green tongue killings. Is that what they ended up called? Black tongue. I'm sorry. She's the one that does the autopsies on the bodies. Then you find out she's actually using drugs, but she's a high-functioning drug addict, and she's trying to detox. And I think Jessica Alba could play her character really well because she is a very complex character. And, she is of Latin descent, so I feel like she would do that role, perfectly. So I picked Jessica Alba. Then, for Sophia. Then for Juliet, which is the resort owner, I thought of Natalie Hall. I didn't know her name. I had to look it up. But again, it's Christmas time. I've been watching a lot of Christmas movies. And Natalie Hall is in a lot of Hallmark movies. She's specifically in one. It's called Winter Princess. And it's literally about a ski resort. So that's why she kept popping in my head. And she's just a classic blonde, pretty. I could see her, Winter Princess. She played it really well. I don't know why there's a random picture of a tattoo. But I could see her pretty. I don't even know if that's her. Probably not. But I could see her playing, a resort owner. Then we have Catherine, who is the aunt. And it mentions how she's younger than his mom because she had him older. I mean, their mom must have had her when she was older, I meant. It mentioned that there's a significant age difference between them, but that she's still, older than them, obviously. And not just that, but she's kind of like a goody two-shoes. She's the one that plans the whole trip. She's the one that's helping Sophia detox. She's the one, that's sober and clean. So it's kind of shoving that in people's faces and stuff like that. So the goody two-shoes in her literally reminded me of Kristen Davis from Sex and the City. The one that plays Charlotte. Because Charlotte definitely has those goody two-shoe vibes. And I could see her literally being a good Catherine. She might be a little too old for the role because she is supposed to be a lot younger than Audrey. But I do think she looks incredible for her age. So I do think she would still play. She could still look like she's a lot younger. I'm trying to find a more recent one. Pretty sure this one's a more recent one. And she still looks incredible. Obviously, she has some wrinkles. She is supposed to be older than Michael and Jeremy and all that. But she's supposed to be a lot younger than Audrey. But I do think she looks really good for her age. And she could probably pull it off. So, for Catherine, I thought of Kristen Davis. And then Andy. Andy's not a huge role. He's kind of just the doting husband. So, again, I went on that website. And the person who came up looked super familiar. And I'm like, how do I know this person? And then when I looked at his bio, I was like, oh my god, he's been in so many things. But it's David Cross. So he was in Scream 2, which is one of my favorite Scream movies. Not Scream 2. Scary Movie 2, which is my favorite scary movie. I don't do horror. I've never watched any of the Screams. But scary movies make fun. They're funny versions of the scary movies. He also does a voice in the Minions. He does a lot of voice acting. I didn't even realize that until I started looking up his bio. He's also in Alvin and the Chipmunks. He's in Megamind. So yeah, I feel like they hit the nail on the head with that one. I could see him playing a good Andy. And that is the list of characters. I personally love the book. Something different that we're doing. Charmaine texted me yesterday because she really wants to get ahead for January because we were a little behind. She wants to do the book club questions, wrap-up review, and the reveal at the same time. So right now, I'm going to reveal to you what book we are reading for January. And it's kind of perfect. Are you ready? Drum roll, please. Yes, I am hitting a box of mac and cheese. There's Joe doing the drum roll. The winner is Everyone on This Train is a Suspect, which is literally the next book. So, from what I read, it is a whole new cast, but it is the same detective. So, Ernest is the detective. He is on a train full of writers. So, it says, how are you supposed to figure out the murderer when they're all capable of murder? Because they all write crime novels. It sounds really good. I ordered it already tonight on Book Outlet. So you can get it on Book Outlet really cheap. Again, I had no storage. I'm going to make this short and sweet because that was basically the end. But you can get it for $7.49 on Book Outlet. You can get it for $15 on Amazon because it's half off right now. Normally it's $30 for the hardcover on Amazon. So try to get it cheap a lot of places. I was able to get it on audio as well on Libby. So I'm actually going to listen and read it. Libby's a great app. You just have to have a library card. But try to get your hands on it. But for it to win, a lot of you must have joined us. For everybody in my family has killed someone, you must have wanted to read the second book. And I'm glad it won because I loved the first one. I loved how different it was, unique. I love that he broke the third wall. I love that it had some comic relief. I'm very curious to see what my friend Charmaine thinks. So definitely go watch her videos and let me know if you're going to join us next month.